Okay, so the next video that I want to go through here is going to cover a few topics. One of the things that I have a problem with is I've been researching this a long time. I've spent a lot of my life reading books, reading web pages, reading PDF files, listening to videos, trying to figure out what the truth is. The truth is a slippery thing. It is extremely difficult to figure out what the truth is when literally everyone that you're listening to has at least a little bit of fabrication in their story. And so what you're forced to do is, while you're reading the book or reading the PDF or whatever it is that you're reading, you're forced to continuously stop reading and go research something that was just said. And it's extremely difficult because then you're pushed into a different direction that you then have to go figure out if you're reading the truth over there. And so this massive research project of never-ending bullshit. It's very, very, very frustrating and very difficult. One example, and I'll credit this person, Yusef on YouTube. I will credit him with the fact that he has probably single-handedly given me or provided more documentation to go read than anyone else that I've ever watched. The man is a walking encyclopedia. Like he has in his mind the name of every damn book he's ever read, and it's incredible. I would like to say that he was a good guy, but the problem is he's actually a complete and utter asshole. And he knows that he's an asshole, but it's worse than being an asshole because here's a funny thing that you really, when you do what I'm doing, it's a funny thing that you quickly realize is that you have all these people around you that are pretending, and I do mean pretending, and Yusef absolutely fits in this category. They pretend to be constitutionalists. They pretend to care about the country. They pretend to care about other people. But in reality, the very first thing that every single one of them do, the sovereign citizens, the Jural Society people, every single one of them, the very first thing they do is take away your First Amendment right to ask questions, put themselves in an echo chamber, and then never listen to anything that's contrary to what they believe is true. So they'll never entertain what someone else says because they're too built up into this belief system that they have, manufactured in their own head that they just can't handle it. Yusef is an extremely arrogant asshole. All you got to do is listen to one of his videos, and on every single video, he's bashing every single person that says anything contrary to what he says. And he literally says that he's the smartest man in the room. So Yusef, I'll tell you, you are the smartest man in the room when you're the only man in the room. So you're not wrong that you are the smartest man in the room. You just need to look around the room and see who else is in there with you. So the point to this is that it's very, very frustrating listening to these people talking about the federal government as a corporation, all this nonsense. And so what has happened is, because I've had to do all this extra research, and it's kind of pissed me off that I've had to go do all this stuff. Almost, in fact, I can literally tell you, out of all the documentation, all the books that I've bought because of Yusef, and all of the things that I've read, 100% of them were full of shit. They had elements in them that had the true story in them, but they get so sidetracked in so much bullshit minutia that you can't figure out what the hell's true anymore. You get halfway through the book and you just have to put it down. It's like, oh my God, I'm becoming dumber the more of this I read. So, if we could actually have a debate with someone that's not trying to get paid to come into the room and is not trying to control all of the aspects of what we're debating, I'd love to have some conversations. I don't even know that it needs to be called a debate, just a conversation on certain subjects to try to figure out what the truth is. Like I'm not interested in, here's a key element that you should always pay attention to. And we're fixing to look at it right now. If you see someone make a claim and you ask them where did they get the information for that claim, and they point you to another person making the claim, that's not evidence. That is not anything but 50 person down the line, here's where it came from. But that person, when you go read what he says, he doesn't give you any evidence. And so you have to be very, very careful if you're going to start listening to any of these videos and any of these things that are on the internet, because if you're not willing to back up and take the possibility that you could have been wrong with some of that stuff, then you're just not an honest person. You're literally just trying to make money. So I just want to throw that out there before we get started. So here is one of the things that is said, and it's very disappointing to see some people repeating this, because you start, here's the problem, and everybody should take this to heart. If you start pushing a narrative and you have not done the research to back that narrative up, you haven't actually found the original documents to support what it is that you're pushing, you really shouldn't say anything about it. Like, I could take the responsibility that some of the videos, and I'm trying to think of like something that I've said in a past video that turned out to be completely wrong. I thought that I was wrong when I started talking to Juan, and I still could be wrong on some things, but what Juan did for me is he actually brought up some things that I hadn't thought about and then forced me down a road that I hadn't traveled. And to be honest with you, for a couple weeks, I was kind of depressed. I was like, damn, I've done all this research, and now what I thought I had made complete sense of, I was wrong. I misunderstood what I thought I knew. But in reality, what it actually accomplished was to get me to go dig into it even deeper and reaffirm even stronger than I had before that the information that I've been talking about is probably the more correct storyline. Now I still leave open that I could still be wrong. Juan may in fact have some legitimate points that that I'm still considering, but I've got to kind of rethink. But the point is do your own damn research and stop listening to all these dumbasses out here like Yusef, because they are peddling absolute bullshit and they're going to get you in trouble. So if you're not willing to do the research, then at least try to follow somebody that is doing the research and is honest with you that, hey, this is something we thought we understood, but turns out we were dumbasses. We actually read that incorrectly. And I'm going to show you some examples now. So the first thing I want to talk about is almost everybody to a T tells you there's more than one constitution. Every one of these people in the movement, whether it's sovereign citizens, the people that I talked about in the last video, the Yusef, all these people talk about there being multiple constitutions and that the federal government is a corporation and that all this stuff, okay? From my research, all of this stuff is bullshit, like complete and utter bullshit. None of them have ever produced 2 copies of the Constitution. None of them. None of them have ever produced incorporation papers for the federal government. None of them have produced legislation that talked about incorporating the federal government. And is the federal government incorporated? I have no damn idea. I do not. But I'm not going to say it is because I have no damn idea. I have no proof. Nobody has ever supplied any. So it's a ridiculous argument. And so this is a website that I was pointed to defend the position that there are more than one constitution. And so I wanted to go through this as quickly as possible just to kind of show you what ridiculous stuff is said. So this says the second Constitution of the United States of America, established in 1871, that's right after the Civil War, is a new and different form of governance than what was created in 1789 Constitution. The first Constitution created a nation. The second a corporation that used this second Constitution to form a new government called the United States Incorporated. First off, there is no paperwork whatsoever or legislation that ever discusses the United States Inc. There's nothing. This date that they're talking about here, the federal government did incorporate the District of Columbia. Now, if you go read, there's legislation on this, which is funny to me that they would say that the United States is incorporated, but they can't show any legislation, but they do show you the legislation where they incorporated D.C. And when they incorporated the D.C. and you read the legislation, it says that it was done so that Congress, because up at that point, Congress had to vote on everything that was getting done inside of the District of Columbia. And so they incorporated it so that it could manage itself. They could have a mayor, they could do, and let it deal with its own shit. And that's why it was incorporated, and that function of the District of Columbia was removed from the legislation so that they no longer had to deal with all that stuff. So, but somehow the incorporation of D.C. has manifested into the United States being incorporated. And so I want to address something else, because I've actually had people give me paperwork showing the U.S. Inc. is a corporation. Well, here's a problem. I can incorporate anything that I want to pay to actually go to the state website and incorporate. And the paperwork that these people had supplied me was paperwork from New York. So someone in New York went and incorporated a business called US Inc. What does that prove? Like, what in the world does it prove? The other thing that you have a problem with is people point to the Dun and Bradstreet stuff as, look, all of the state governments are all listed in here. Well, the problem with that is that anytime a search goes into Dun and Bradstreet where somebody's looking for a company, they put an entry into their database because it's a private company. They can do anything they want, but they put an entry into their database so that they now know that there must be some business out there somewhere that has that name that they may want to start collecting information on. It doesn't prove that that business actually exists or that it has been incorporated. It doesn't prove anything. It just means that somebody put an entry on Dun and Bradstreet with that name. So those two elements of how this whole thing gets going is those are just facts. So going on, it says, for the United States Inc. to become a legal entity, it had to have its own constitution. Well, that's bullshit. A company doesn't have to have a constitution. A company can have anything that the corporate documents that dictate what the company is going to do, how the board of directors is going to be set up, and all of that stuff. That's all part of the corporation, but it doesn't have to have a constitution. And it damn sure doesn't have to look like the Constitution that formed the country. So these are just, most of this stuff is written by people that have never run a business on their own, and they have no idea what in the hell they're talking about. So it says the 41st Congress committed treason by illegally abandoning the republic to form a corporation managed by the three branches of government from the incorporated District of Columbia. Now, again, the paperwork for the legislation that formed the District of Columbia does not form a new Congress and a new House and all of the things that go involved. So I don't know where this comes from. If there's paperwork out there and you have it, please give it to me and I'll do a video saying that I'm a dumbass and I was wrong. But at this point, I've done way too much research on this topic to think that any of this exists. So it says it goes on talking a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo. And it comes down here. It says June 1st, 1789 Constitution and the first 10 amendments referred to as the Bill of Rights, written by our forefathers, along with the Declaration of Independence, guarantee the God-given rights. Here's the problem. Every single one of these people, every single one of them claim that they abide by the 1789 Constitution. But mysteriously, it has more than 10 amendments to it. which means that that Constitution is the same damn Constitution that the federal government is using today, and the same Constitution that all these amendments are getting added to that all of the different states have. So it doesn't make any sense. It's like you're going to tell me that they're two different documents, but you can't produce them, and then you're going to somehow tell me that the 1871 Constitution that only had 10 amendments in it now has 20-something amendments in it, but it's different. The other thing is I've had people actually give me physical copies of these documents, and they are word for word the exact same document. There's no difference. Well, let's get to the real nuts of it. The 1789 Constitution drafted by our founders was titled the Constitution for the United States of America. Here's a problem, people. And I don't know. Let me see if I can actually pull it up, because I did at one point collect the U.S. Constitution. I got an image of it. Let me see if I can find it. The original Constitution. The thing is, do you see a title on there? There's no title on the Constitution. There's never been a title on the Constitution. So these people that are saying that the Constitution titled with the word "for," and then the one for the federal government says "of the United States," that's literally the only difference between the two documents is this word "for" and "of," and there's no title on the damn document. But we're going to continue to manifest this story for the rest of our lives, telling everybody that the federal Constitution has, in fact, I'll make sure I had that over here, but telling everybody that there's more than one Constitution when none of the story makes any sense whatsoever. No, absolutely none of it. Now, I want to show you another example of something that I'm guilty of, because I took the story that I was told and I read the entry in the code section, and I just assumed that that's what it was saying. Let's go in here and let's take a look at politics, code sections, United States. Let's see, where is it? Acceptance. United States Corporation. Let's read this again. I've brought this up in earlier videos, and I was incorrect in what I said, because it says definitions United States Corp. Or that's not what it says. It says definition United States, but it says United States means, this is 28 USC 3002 section 50 or item 15. United States means A, a federal corporation, B, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity, or C, an instrumentality of the United States. So when I read it incorrectly before, I said the United States means a federal corporation. But a federal corporation is any company that is incorporated within the District of Columbia. It's any federal corporation. It has nothing to do with them. They didn't say the United States is a federal corporation. It just says within the context of 28 USC 3002, the United States means, it could mean a federal corporation, an agency or department, or an instrumentality of the United States. This is something that I screwed up because I should have done a better job of reading this, but you can kind of see where people are getting misled with this. But the point is this isn't saying that the United States is a federal corporation. It's just saying that it could mean a federal corporation. So there are things that get pushed that just don't make any sense whatsoever. Another good example is when they talk about the definition of driver. Yusef is big on this. The definition of driver is a commercial, anybody operating commercially. Now, in some states, they actually probably do define a driver that way. But the problem with this thing is that every single person that is making this claim is using federal codes to define driver. Well, the problem is none of us have driver's license for Washington, D.C. So none of that has anything to do with driving in the state of Georgia. A driver in the state of Georgia is something completely different than what it lists in the federal USC. So you have to understand the context of where the definition is being applied. It only applies to the section that it's defined in. You can't take a definition and just use it wherever you want to. It depends on the part of the code. Like, for example, the Title 26 has never been codified into positive law, which means that they haven't actually gone to Title 26 and pulled all of the pieces that make it up and put them into one category so that you could then say that this definition applies here, here, and here. That means that some of the definitions being used inside of Title 26 may have come from other code sections. It may not be in Title 26. So it makes it a little, well, it doesn't make it a little, it makes it extremely difficult to figure out what in the world is being said when they're using all of this stuff, because they've got the code is like this spaghetti of bullshit, and then they want us to be responsible for understanding what it says. So the whole point of this video, I'm not going to make it any longer. The whole point of this video is, if you're going to put a flag up, go do some research on the flag. The gold fringe on the flag has absolutely no meaning whatsoever. I've got congressional records that define the flag. I've got a presidential letter that defined where that was written to the military asking them what the hell is the gold fringe on the flag represent, and they've reported back that it doesn't mean anything. It's just there for decoration. So I have evidence proving that vertical line flag that some people, the sovereign citizens, love to fly. I have evidence that the flag we fly exists. It's defined. It's legislated. There's stuff there. There is no legislation about a vertical line flag. None. Zero. Zilch. Not a single conversation is ever mentioned about that. People like to point back to the Coast Guard. We'll go look at what the hell does the Coast Guard have to do with the flag for the United States? There isn't even a declaration about a wartime flag. They say there's this mysterious wartime flag, and the gold fringe is our wartime flag. It's all bullshit, people. Every single bit of this stuff is bullshit. And I believe personally that possibly that the people that originated these stories are plants to make us say stupid shit, to make us look stupid when we start trying to talk about something. Because again, if I wrote a book and I spent half of the time in my book talking about this stupid ass multiple constitutions and the gold fringe flag and the maritime bullshit, if I did that, what ends up happening is the person that's trying to read my book, they're never going to get to the content of my book. And by the time they do get to the content of my book, they're going to question whether it's true or not, because they've already been introduced to a whole bunch of other stuff that's not true. So we all need to step back away from all this folklore and figure out what the actual facts are and only talk about the facts.